Thank you. Madam Secretary, let's begin by calling the roll.
Okay. Director Colson. Here. Director Durante. Director Fraga. Aye. Director Fuentes.
Here.
Director Groven.
Here.
Director Higgins.
Here.
Director Holt.
Here.
Director Cotel.
Here.
Director Lewis.
Here.
Director McAllis.
Here.
Director Melvin.
Here.
Director Pang.
Here.
Director Ross.
Here.
Dr. Sager.
Here.
Director Troiani.
Here.
Chairman Dillard.
Here.
We have a quorum of 15 present with 1 absent.
Thank
Nobody's on the phone today.
you. All right. Thank you. Before we begin, we lost in the last couple of weeks a longtime member of this board, somebody who was a public figure in Illinois. I always call him Senator Donald Totten, or Don Totten, as I know. Don was 86 and quite a gentleman. I was very lucky in my career to have been an intern with the Senate staff in Springfield and first met Don down there. And he made quite an impression. And to me, as a young staffer, I was always taken by his gentleness and his kindness. He would give me the time of day. I'm a 20-some-year-old kid, and he would joke with me. He would teach me things, and even when he sparred with a governor that I later worked for, Don was always a statesman, and he sort of sat in the lower back left. He sat really just in the very last row on the aisle, so he was a popular senator just because everybody had to pass his desk. But Don was a mechanical engineer, so he brought engineering expertise into his view of life. It served him well on this board in particular. He was a very prominent figure in the Schaumburg community. And he was the chairman of the Cook County Republican Party at one time. But his real claim to fame for most of us was that he was a close advisor to President Ronald Reagan, a friend of the Reagan inner staff, and Don really helped elect President Reagan and was there from the beginning of Ronald Reagan's career as president. Don had a long service on this board. He began, and actually he served 2 tours of duty on this board, each spanning about 15 years. So his expertise on this board was tremendous. For those of you, and I'll ask if any of you want to say anything, the one thing that struck me about Don is he came to every board meeting, as you all do, highly prepared. He asked a lot of questions, and they were always good probing questions. And I always kidded him. I said, wow, you didn't ask that many questions when you were in the state Senate. And he said, well, I have more time to prepare here than I did, where it just comes at you full speed in the Senate. But Don was a real gentleman, and I think he served this board very, very well, and will be truly missed. Anyone else want to say anything? Bill, you served with him, Director Colson, for a long time, but just a wonderfully nice man who always had a voice like Tennessee Tuxedo. One of my favorite cartoon characters. Anything to add?
I'll just add that I did attend the wake last Friday night and sent regards from the RTA as well.
Great. Thank you very much. And will we do, I was just trying to think, will we do ever just a resolution we can send to his kids or not? I'll send him a letter. Leanne and I will send him a letter.
Yeah, because I believe we did a resolution when he retired from the board.
We did.
Both times.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
It's a trifecta of resolutions.
He was pretty dedicated, very dedicated to his board, and I much will miss him. So, all right, moving on to item 3 is the approval of the minutes from the board meeting held on March 21st. Any questions or comments on there? If not, can I have a motion and a second? Dr. Sager moves that we adopt those, seconded by Director Ryan Higgins. Audrey, why don't you take a roll call so we have a baseline roll call.
Okay. Director Colson? Director Fraga? Director Fuentes?
Aye.
Director Groven? Director Higgins? Director Holt? Director Cotel?
Aye.
Director Lewis?
Aye.
Director McGallis? Director Melvin?
Aye.
Director Pang?
Aye.
Director Ross? Dr. Sager? Director Troiani? Chairman Dillard?
Yes.
15 ayes and 1 absent.
Thank you. Item 4 is the public comment segment of our meeting. Anybody signed in?
We have no sign-ins.
Good. I don't mean that in a negative way. Good. So, always love to hear from the public. But there are no speakers for today, so we will move on. Item 5 is the Executive Director's Report. Leanne.
Good morning. You get to hear from me instead, I guess. So, as usual, through the end of March, the state owes the RTA with $392 million in the combination of the ASA, AFA, and the PTF, the Public Transportation Fund payments. The state is about 9 months behind in the ASA payments. It's 15 months behind on the AFA side of things, and about the equivalent of 7.7 months, to be precise, on the Public Transportation Fund reimbursement. The year-to-date cost for us carrying that amount, or covering that amount, is $1.7 million, and I remind everyone it is only April. So, moving on to the broader government affairs update. The Illinois House and Senate are in the middle of their 2-week legislative break. Both chambers will reconvene Tuesday, April 30. When they do reconvene, both will be in session for a continuous 5 weeks leading up to the May 31st scheduled adjournment date. Many issues have yet to be resolved as the session begins to wrap up, including questions surrounding how to balance the fiscal year 2020 budget, which begins July 1st. Governor Pritzker's administration has estimated that a $3.2 billion deficit is expected, as well as a $1.2 billion gap that must be closed in the current fiscal year that ends this June 30. The RTA's short-term borrowing extension, this is on a brighter note, the RTA's short-term borrowing extension sponsored in the House by Revenue Chairman Mike Zalewski passed the House on April 9th. So I think you have all heard us talk for actually now several years about getting this piece of legislation through, so it has at least passed that hurdle and come out of the House. Thanks to a lot of work, I will say, that Jeremy put in literally on the ground to get this pushed through. The bill is sponsored by Senate Transportation Chair Marty Sandoval and is currently awaiting assignment to a committee in the Senate. Moving on to D.C., the Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao participated in a March 27 hearing with Senate Appropriations Committee on Transportation and Housing and Urban Development. The hearing was meant to be about the administration's budget request for 2020, but much of the time ended up being spent on the FAA discussion around recent Boeing 737 MAX controversies. So it wasn't the hearing that everyone really anticipated. However, at a recent House Democrat retreat, Virginia Speaker Pelosi, a recent retreat in Virginia, Speaker Pelosi, I should say, is said to have worked her caucus through the outlines of an infrastructure bill that could be somewhere between $1 to $2 trillion in size. So we're waiting to hear more details about that. We continue to be hopeful. Conversations are continuing to are continuing around an infrastructure bill, as well as us and all of our transportation colleagues are working towards the next year's reauthorization of the federal transportation bill as well. As in Springfield, the U.S. House and Senate are also on a 2-week break. So a week from today will be the first annual Get On Board Day. The RTA region and a statewide campaign is part of a broader national Get On Board Day that is led and being sponsored by the APTA, the American Public Transportation Association. It encourages people to support public transportation by showcasing its benefits to communities and to the economy. We're participating in that in several different ways. We've created ads that are currently being carried on CTA, Metro, and PACE vehicles, as well as digital billboards that share the message that funding will improve the rider experience. You may have seen some of those billboards on highways and on social media accounts across all four of the transit agencies. They're also pointing riders to our webpage, getonboardillinois.org. Riders and others can then go to that website webpage and then send emails and or tweet to their statewide elected officials asking them to support public transportation. It's easy to do, and I encourage you to take a few moments. You can go through our website and do that as well, just to express it's put in your name and your email address, and you're done in a few seconds. It's very important that I think that we keep. We also looked at this from not just a Northeastern Illinois conversation. It is a broader statewide initiative and campaign, hence why it's called Get On Board Illinois. We have an example of the ad that Peoria, for example, is running on their city's transit system. And we are culminating all of this sort of lead-up work to an event that will be hosted next Thursday at Union Station. We're hoping stakeholders and transit partners will be joining us to make it clear that our system is critical to both our region and our statewide economy. Chairman Dillard and I will both be there speaking, as well as leaders from the service boards. Other speakers will include the Mayor of Moline, Stephanie Acree, and she'll talk about the sort of broaden out the conversation across the entire state and the benefits to some of the smaller transit operators in the state. A representative from a prominent developer will talk about sort of the access to employment and the investment opportunities that the transit system helps support. UIC will also be there to talk about the importance of our system on urban educational institutions. AbbVie will be sending a speaker to talk about from a suburban employer's perspective and how the value of Metro service is critical, especially in the reverse commute market. And Commissioner Karen Tamley from the Chicago Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities will be there to speak about the importance of continued funding for accessibility across the broader system. So if you do have a few moments on next Thursday around 10 a.m., we encourage you to stop by, let people, friends, family, and others know. We've invited media as well, so we're hoping that this is a good opportunity to sort of continue the drumbeat and make the point about the need to invest in our transportation network. With that, I will end my comments. Happy to entertain any questions.
Director Colson.
I read in the paper this morning that Metro got some state capital funding to build 2 new stations. How does this money magically appear all of a sudden? Do you know?
So it's a combination of things. One is a grant through DCEO, and the other one is through the State Department of Transportation. You will recall, the capital budget that we're working on is 10 years old. There was a lot of projects in there. Some of them fell off. These came back.
Well, they spent really the better part of 2 years kind of working through all their projects, finding where monies were and weren't being spent, and then allocating them. And this is one of those. This is the beneficiary of that work.
Thank you. Just one thing I think to add to maybe the federal segment is Congressman Lipinski held a hearing probably within the last week on particularly the issues with Amtrak at Union Station, and it was very clear from Amtrak's representative there, they have no desire to turn over any more control of Union Station to Metro. So that was, and that did get quite a bit of publicity. Metro riders, of which I'm one, are starting to see that many of those problems at Union Station are not caused by Metro, and they know the root of those causes. Anything else on this report? Just on the mayoral, we'll have another meeting, I think, before the actual swearing in of Mayor Lightfoot. But I'm on the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee. Sarah is, as she always is, graciously giving her time to a mayoral transition. Alex is involved, and I think a number of you are involved. So we're positioned pretty well to give input to the mayor-elect, and Her comments throughout the campaign generally have been pretty positive towards transit. But if there's anything you think that she directly needs to know, and one of the points Director Colson we've tried to make is that she needs to understand that Metra is not just a suburban operation, that it has growing importance, especially with Lincoln Yards, and I read the same story you did today, a growing interest and need with respect to Metra in Chicagoland. So Metra is very much and should be on the mayor's radar screen, knowing that it's an economic tool for Chicago that is also paramount. So, yes, sir. Director
There's
Lewis.
importance between the city and the county really kind of cooperating together. Do we know if to date there have been any talks scheduled with respect to the incoming mayor and maybe the board president?
They've met. Maybe Sarah would know. I mean, I see them together. I've seen them together a couple of times.
Those meetings have started on a variety of issues: economic development, overall, transit, definitely, pension problems. I mean, the list is long. And the point that it's at now is aligning her staff as they come on board to the corresponding staffs in CTA, Metra, the county, et cetera. And so that's happening now, and I think right now we're in a period where there's one mayor at a time. She's getting her team in place. As she gets them in place, we're calling them transition folks because they may not be the people that go in, but there's somebody that you can talk to now. And if you go back to just transit, Chairman Dillard and our executive director, Leanne Redden, are very, very involved and will help to craft language that will go into the transition committee transition document. We don't know exactly, how that will get massaged and negotiated, but I think it's going to be a very inclusive report, but it's going to be an initial report because if we go back to Mayor Emanuel knew he was elected mayor in February and was inaugurated in the third week of May. She was elected 3 weeks ago and is going to be sworn in on May 20th. So it's a short 7 weeks. And so this transition the committees, including neighborhood organizations, all the way to federal officials with a lot of experience and citywide officials will continue into the administration so that the ideas are fully fleshed out, the connections are made, and that it is then embedded in the administration. And as you know, her budget, the first look at a budget when she becomes Mayor Lightfoot will be in August, and then the budget season begins. It's a long season. Alex knows better than most, and Alex will be in the room on those things too because they have a lot of new people, which is great. Which is why she won. New ideas. They don't. They say, they question deeply when anybody says, "But that's how it's always been done." So that's why she was elected, and that will continue. But also adding people who have a lot of the facts and details, and so I think it's going to be really powerful. But it's forming. It's still forming.
It might be an important time because I think this is a flex point where the county and the city might work together on transportation. So I just put that out there.
Right.
And if there's anything I can do to help.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and this is going to sound ridiculous to say. It is one of the easier problems to work together on across. It's so clear what the value of transit is. Sometimes, people take sides on education policies and pensions and things like that. But transit, it's clear. So if we connected together, it's obviously more powerful. So I agree, and we can talk right after this meeting on how we do that.
And one of the ways that you all can help, you all have an appointing authority, and I would just encourage your appointing authority to work with the mayor-elect I was over on the county side yesterday, meeting with another county-wide elected official, talking about the transition, encouraging that person to cooperate with the new mayor, and I think he has. And we will, through Jeremy and others, we're gonna make sure that we speak to the new aldermen and the current aldermen that are there. There's a lot of new aldermen coming on board, which will be challenging. And then also county commissioners. Some of you are appointed by Cook County commissioners, and you can certainly, through them, encourage President Preckwinkle to try to cooperate as much as she can. So, you all have your own sphere of folks you see, and I would just say, look, we are all in this together. The county and the city are in this together, the collar counties. There was another report today on a minimal decline in population in Lake DuPage and Cook. And, we're all one region. We are all in this together. And so when you see the people that are in your sphere of influence or your appointing authorities, just say, hey, we got to cooperate, because we really do. Okay. Item 6 is the approval of contract and expenditure items as they appear on our board agenda today. 6A is an ordinance authorizing a contract for the Microsoft license renewal that we have. 6B is an ordinance authorizing a contract for upgrading the RTA's critical storage area network. 6C is an ordinance authorizing a contract amendment with Solid Line Media for ongoing edits to the mobility management video series. And again, I encourage all the board, if you haven't seen those videos, they're highly informative. They're really well done. And take a few minutes and look at those. And if you can't figure out how to access them, Susan's back here and she can show you how to do that. And 6D are the travel expense reimbursements as required by law. Any questions on any of these for Leanne or the staff? When I read them, they were fairly self-explanatory. If not, can I have a motion to approve the items that are on 6? Director Groven moves we approve the items 6A through 6D, seconded by Director McGallis. Is there leave for the attendance roll call? Seeing no objection, leave is granted.
15 ayes and 1 absent.
Thank you. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, May 16th, with committee meetings beginning at 8:30. Is there any new business to come before us? Anything from the staff? Yes, Director Sager.
I don't really have new
Dr.
business,
Sager.
but if you don't mind, I'd like to just go back to a comment that you made earlier
Yes, sir.
with regards to some of the scheduling challenges that occur, especially on some of the western lines. I think the fact of the matter is that, unfortunately, while I don't like to speak negatively toward any other organization, institution, service at all, but I think there is a reality that when we have scheduling challenges of the nature that we have heard reported in the media recently, it comes back to Metra. I mean, it's always pointed to Metra. But the reality is that it's not Metra's ultimate fault, if you will. It's a challenge which is associated by another entity. And I'm just wondering, is there an effort that is ongoing, or are there some things that we might be able to do to help to alleviate some of that negative impact, negative media coverage, negative public opinion that might be coming towards Metro?
One of the things, and they've started, when it really started to unravel, I called Director Derwinski, or the CEO of Metra, and said, look, I'm like you. I don't like to throw, we're a transit agency, no pun intended, anybody under the bus. But I sit there like every other rider, and I listen to the comments when I'm in the station, and we all get our notices, or we hear the wonderful voice of Metro over the loudspeakers, and just say, look, you got to inform people of what the cause is, and we fess up. When we have mechanical breakdowns, that's why we're doing our Get On Board better rides begin with better funding. But we have our own issues, and we say, look, it's ours. But when it's not caused by us, you got to tell the riders that it's an Amtrak issue or it's caused by freight train interference. And we operate, on very complex, multiple rail lines, so it's not an easy operation. But you just got to let if we've learned one thing, I think, from United Airlines, people are generally, knock on wood, understanding. You just got to give them the cause. And I worry very much about Metra's brand reputation, but most of what goes on in terms of delays often is not their problem. And we're at the mercy of Amtrak or the Burlington Northern or whomever. But I know they now regularly say who the problem is, and that helps a little bit. And the hearing that Congressman Lipinski had, I give Congressman Lipinski credit. He's been all over Amtrak, including the CEO or the president of Amtrak, just saying this is unacceptable, and you've got to fix this. So hopefully they're telling folks what the real story is, and I think the media now has a better handle, at least with respect to Union Station, what the causes are. On Metro Electric, there was a freight train that hit a pole that took it out of operation for a couple of days, that has nothing to do with us. It was a freight train that took this thing down. So the more we just give the public the full story, the better it is. But we all have to be vigilant, and it really does, in many of these instances, begin with better funding. We just have not taken care of our infrastructure, both in Illinois and nationally, over the last 20 years as we should have. But thank you. Yes, Director Ross.
Earlier you talked about the importance of Metra in the city of Chicago in particular. I wonder if the same is true of the relationship with PACE. And the reason I ask is during the holiday season, my wife and I were having dinner at the Grand Lux, and I was actually surprised by the number of PACE buses that I saw on Michigan Avenue. It was kind of shocking, the number of buses I saw in a 1 hour period of time. So I wonder what the relationship is there. Are they also picking up city passengers for inner city stops? Or
well, the biggest thing they do is ADA paratransit, and I think maybe.
Well, I'm aware of that.
Sarah
But these were big buses.
But additionally, the Bus on Shoulder program that comes in from the sort of the southwest along I-55 does do drop-offs both at the medical center and then onto Michigan Avenue. So they're running express services into that area,
But they also have inner city stops then, so
they make a couple of stops along Michigan. Yes, they don't.
So they could pick up someone at the medical center and drop them someplace else in the city.
Yeah, I guess they could. I'm not sure that that's necessarily on people's radar in that sense. But to the broader point you're asking about, the information that we have been submitting to Mayor Lightfoot's transition information, we did incorporate information about all three providers. We didn't make it just CTA centric and city focused, even though it's focused on obviously on the city,
sure.
But the opportunities of the three providers within the realm of the city of Chicago to make sure that that's highlighted, because it is often kind of forgotten about. Metro has 80 stations. PACE provides a lot of service within the city of Chicago as well, some downtown, but also in sort of on the fringe areas, connecting in and out of areas, Jeff Park, 95th Street Station, some of those key hubs within the city of Chicago, too, is where PACE is really strong in serving as well.
Yep. I was just down at 95th Street, and PACE comes into the new 95th Street L station. A lot of students for Chicago State University on there, coming in from the suburbs. So PACE is part of the process, with ADA and Bus on Shoulder being the largest. But we should go back, Sarah and Leanne and Jeremy, and we'll look at that just to kind of stress that. I know we're stressing Metra's part of it, but we need to probably say PACE's too. It's a good point.
Yeah,
Those
I think
Bus on Shoulders really
map
help your area.
too that shows all the stations and who's, Metro, CTA, et cetera, just because there's a lot of new people. I think Mayor Lightfoot's fully aware, but making sure the economic development team has that too. A lot of apps, I know that.
Anything else before we go into executive session? So we've had a motion in a second. All those in favor of adjourning?
Whoa.
Yes.
Who motioned in second? We didn't get there yet.
Okay.
We need to have the
And then we
exception
need
cited as
to have
well.
Leanne give us the reasons we're going into executive session.
Just to
Do
make it
that
official, if the board would vote to move into executive session and adjourn from there, we can then proceed to close session of the meeting pursuant to subsections 2C21, 2C8, and 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act.
Great. All right.
Now.
Can I have a motion? Director Higgins moves we adjourn, and with the caveat we're going into executive session, seconded by Director Melvin. Now, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Nays. The ayes have it. Thank you.